Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, Wooden Railway Adventures, Episode 150, Groundhog Gordon. After many months of anticipation, the first snowfall was headed to the island of Sodor, and all of the engines at the shed were happy. Well, almost everybody. "I don't like the snow," said Gordon crossly. "Why don't you like the snow?" said Donald. "It gets in the way while pulling the express." "Ugh," groaned the engines around the turntable. Duck was most upset. "Gordon," he said, "you've been complaining about the snow since this morning. Why don't you just stop for once? The rest of us are excited that the snow is coming. Why don't you like the snow?" "Because," said Gordon, "like I said, the snow gets in the way. Huh. I wish it was summer, so that when I race down the track with the express, there would be nothing in the way." "Well, there won't be anything in the way," said James, "when Thomas arrives and clears the tracks in the morning." "Knowing Thomas," said Gordon, "he'll probably be late." "No, he won't," said Daisy. "Thomas is getting fitted for a snowplow right now." "Yeah," said Boko. "I passed him going to the works on the way here. He'll be back in no time." "I hope," said Gordon, "because if I'm late tomorrow—" Gordon wasn't able to finish his sentence, as suddenly a whistle was heard. "Oh," "Look," said Edward. "It's Thomas. He's back." "Peep, peep," said a voice. Thomas came around the corner with his snowplow. Oliver noticed something very particular as he pulled into the shed. "Look," said Oliver. "Look, there's snow on him. There's snow." "Hooray," said the engine. "The snow is here." "Thomas," said Percy, "is it snowing on the other side of the island already?" "Yes," said Thomas. "There is a big storm coming all right. Let's just say that when we wake up tomorrow morning, there will be snow everywhere." "Hooray," said the rest of the engines. "Ugh," said Gordon crossly. "I don't like the snow." "What's Gordon's problem?" said Thomas. "It's a long story," said Toby, "but don't worry about it. If Thomas wants to hear my story, then he should hear it." "I actually don't want to," said Thomas cheekily, "but never mind, Gordon. We can listen to it later. What's gone into him anyway? I think Gordon's a little upset that he has to sleep outside tonight." "No, I'm not," said Gordon crossly. "Look, there are other engines outside here." "Oh, yeah," said James. "That's the reason. Too bad I got here before you." Hee. Gordon was most upset, but he didn't say a word. "Well then," said Thomas, "I have to get up bright and early tomorrow morning to clear the rails, and I think that we should all get some sleep." "You're right," said Oliver. "Let's all go to bed, shall we?" And with that, the engines agreed, and soon they were asleep. Everybody was asleep except Gordon. He was still grumbling about the snow. "I don't like the snow," said Gordon, "and I wish it would go away." The next morning, the engines awoke to find something very special waiting for them. "Look! Look!" said Thomas. "It's here! It's here!" All but one by one, the engines started to awake. "Look," they said, "look! The snow! It's finally here!" And Thomas was right. There was snow everywhere. "Hooray!" said the engines. "The snow is finally here." "Ugh," said Gordon crossly. "I hope this snow melts soon." The engines were shocked. "But the snow just got here," said Duck. "Yes, I hope the snow melts," said Gordon. "And I hope that Thomas gets out soon so that he can start clearing the rails." "Hang on a second," said Thomas. "My driver and fireman just got here." "Don't worry, Gordon. I'll be out soon." "You better be," said Gordon. "Ugh, this snow is starting to make me feel sick." "Feel sick?" said Boko. "Yes, you don't understand it. You're not a steam engine." Boko felt hurt, and the other engines were quite cross. They didn't like Gordon's negative attitude. "Well," said Thomas, "I'm about ready to go." "Wait," said Henry. "Do you guys know what today is?" "What is it?" said Toby. "It's Groundhog Day." "Oh, Groundhog Day," said the rest of the engines. "We like Groundhog Day." "What's Groundhog Day?" said Gordon crossly. Edward gasped. "You don't know what Groundhog Day is?" "No," said Gordon crossly. "I don't." "Let me explain," said Henry. "If the groundhog comes out of his hole and sees a shadow, that means that we'll have 6 more weeks of winter. But if he comes out of his show and it's cloudy and he doesn't see a shadow, well, that means there'll be an early spring." "Huh," said Gordon. "I hope the groundhog doesn't see a shadow." "Why?" asked Douglas. "'Cause that means we'll have an early spring, and this snow can finally melt." The engines were most upset. "Well, I'm happy to get out of here for one," said Thomas. "Goodbye, everybody. I'll be back soon. I have to go clear the rails with Annie and Clarabelle." "Hurry back," said Gordon crossly. "I have the express to pull." "All right," said Thomas. "Goodbye, everybody." And with that, Thomas puffed away. "Goodbye, Thomas," said the engines, as Thomas disappeared into the distance. A few minutes later, Thomas the Tank Engine pulled into the yard to get Annie and Clarabelle. Some workmen were there. "Hello," said Thomas. "Are you here to help clear the snow?" "Aye," said the workman. "Let's get ready to work." "Good," said Thomas, smiling. "Hop in Annie and Clarabelle over here so we can get started." The workmen climbed inside as quickly as they could. "Excellent," said Thomas. "Now let's get off before Gordon throws a fit." With that, Thomas puffed away. He raced around the aisle in the soda, clearing the rails as fast as he could. Most of the time, the snow slid aside just like any other snow. Other times, he encountered large drifts, and that's when the workmen had to get out with their shovels and help. The workmen would then climb back inside, and Thomas would charge through the heap of snow and continue along his way. A few minutes later, Thomas was almost done clearing the rails. "Wow," he said, "I'm tired. I think we should head back to the shed, driver. Not until we make sure that all the rails have been cleared," he said. "And look, up there, towards the viaduct. We haven't gone up there yet." "Oh, bother," said Thomas. "Look, there's snow all over the place. It will take me forever." "No, it won't," laughed the driver. "If you're quick about it, Thomas, we can be off there in a few seconds." "Oh, all right," said Thomas. "I don't like going on the viaduct, though. It's scary." But with that, Thomas started up the hill. His wheels began to slip as he went up towards the viaduct. There was still ice on the rails, and his wheels felt very slippery. "I'm almost there," he said. And with that, he soon began to clear the snow off the top of the viaduct. As Thomas raced away down the hill, eager to get back to his shed, neither the driver, nor the fireman, nor any of the workmen noticed that the snow that Thomas had just hit off the top of the viaduct had formed into a giant clump below on the track. Since Thomas had already cleared this line already, he wasn't coming back, and therefore nobody noticed it. Gordon was waiting impatiently when Thomas finally arrived with Annie and Clarabelle. "Oh, hello, Gordon," said Thomas. "You're backwards." "What?" said Gordon. "Don't you usually depart Knapford from the other side of the station?" "Yes, I do," said Gordon crossly. "But since I'm late, I'm going to have to take a shortcut and make up for lost time." "Why are you late?" asked Thomas. "Because of you, Thomas," he said. "You took your sweet old time clearing the tracks, and now I'm late." Thomas was confused. "I didn't take that long," he said. "I just wanted to make sure that all the rails were clear." "Well, that's nice," said Gordon, "but now I'm late. The passengers will be cross with me, and I'll have to answer to Sir Topham Hatt. You need to be on time. You are late." "I'm not late," said Thomas. "I was clearing the tracks. There's no timetable for that." "Well, there is now," said Gordon, "and you're late." Thomas was cross. "You know what, Gordon," he said, "if you don't like the way I clear the tracks, then maybe you should pick up a snowplow for once and do it yourself." And with that, Thomas puffed away crossly. Gordon laughed. "Huh," he said. "Me? Pick up a snowplow? Never." And with that, he sat silently. The passengers were still running around on the platform, and this was making Gordon impatient. He wheezed at them loudly. "Hurry along," said Gordon. "I'm going to be late." He was just getting ready to leave when suddenly his driver walked out of the cab and stepped in front of him. "Ugh," said Gordon. "What is it now?" "Now, Gordon," said the driver, "I just want to make sure that you understand that when we leave the station, you must go slow. Thomas has cleared the tracks, but we don't know if they're safe. There are icing conditions out, and I want you to go slow. Do you understand?" "Yes," grunted Gordon. "I understand." "Good," said the driver. "I'm heading back to the cab now so that we can leave. We don't want to be late." "We're already late," said Gordon crossly, but he said it to himself. The driver walked away. Gordon looked back and saw that the guard had the whistle in his mouth. "All right," said Gordon. "I'm going to do exactly what my driver just told me to do. Thomas is late. The passengers have made me late. I need to make up for lost time. Taking this shortcut won't be enough. I need to go fast." The guard blew his whistle, and the driver was nearly inside the cab when suddenly Gordon rocketed away. "Whoa!" cried the driver. His foot was still hanging off the footplate. "Slow down, Gordon, slow down." "What did I just say?" "I need to make up for lost time," said Gordon crossly. "Let's go, let's go." "Gordon," cried the driver, "slow down. We're coming up to a tunnel over here. We don't know what lays beyond it." "Oh, who cares?" said Gordon, and he raced on. Gordon was a reckless rocket, heading straight for the tunnel. "Slow down," said the driver once again, but Gordon did not listen. As Gordon exited the tunnel, disaster struck. There lay ahead the giant heap of snow that Thomas had hit earlier. "Ugh!" cried Gordon as he raced out of the tunnel. He applied his brakes, but it was no good. The rails were slippery, and it was now like a skating rink. With a loud crash, Gordon hit the snow and landed on top of it. It had now become very solid because of the freezing weather. But the worst was yet to come. Some of the snow had flown up into the air due to the impact, and it came crashing down on top of Gordon. Some of it even went into his funnel and extinguished his fire. "Ugh," said Gordon. "I'm cold." The fireman was very upset. "You miserable engine," he said. "Look what you've done to the driver. He told you to stop, and now he ends up head first in the snow. What do you have to say about this?" But Gordon didn't know what to say. He was very cold and he was very tired, and he had known what he had done was wrong. Sir Topham Hatt arrived a few minutes later. He was most upset, just like the fireman. "Well, Gordon," he said, "Thomas told you to be careful while you were at Knapford Station, and you ignored him, and said you went very fast along this line, and ended up crashing, endangering the well-being of the passengers. I am very disappointed in you, Gordon. It will take a very long time to get you out of there, but if we're lucky, maybe Thomas can get you out soon enough." "Thomas," said Gordon. "Yes, Thomas. He's on his way here with Rocky right now. I hope you have learned your lesson." Gordon didn't know what to say. Out of all the engines that could have come for help, why did it have to be Thomas? And Sir Topham Hatt was right. Thomas arrived a few minutes later with Rocky. "Hello, Gordon," said Thomas. "Are you comfortable?" Gordon was not amused and didn't say anything. "Oh, well," said Thomas, "that's all right. Oh, hey, look at that." Thomas was staring at Gordon's shadow that had been cast by the sun. "It appears there's going to be 6 more weeks of winter," said Thomas, "which isn't good for you, because that means all this snow is going to stay here. Hee hee hee." Gordon was not amused once again. "Be quiet, Thomas," he said crossly. Thomas got the message and soon was quiet. Rocky also began to work as well. It was hard work, however, and soon some workmen were needed to be called in. "This is going to take a very long time," said the workmen. "We'll do our best, however." Gordon was very sad. He knew what he had done was wrong, and he wished that he could take it back. However, that wasn't possible. Rocky and the workmen worked all afternoon, but soon the sun was setting over Gordon's hill. The workmen was tired, Rocky was tired, and Thomas was tired after he had taken the coaches back to the station. The passengers had finally gotten onto their correct train. Now Thomas was watching from a distance as everybody worked hard. He didn't know what to do. He wanted to help his friend Gordon, but he was still confused. Suddenly, the workmen threw down their shovels. "We're done," they said. "You are?" said Thomas. "For the day, at least. Gordon's in so much snow over here, we barely made any progress." Thomas felt very sad for Gordon. He knew that Gordon wanted to get out of the snow as quickly as possible. Even Rocky wanted Gordon to get out of the snow, but that wasn't going to happen today. "Well, what are you going to do?" said Thomas. "We're going to have to come back tomorrow," said the workman. "We'll be back early to get Gordon out." Gordon was most upset. He didn't want to have to spend the night out here in the cold with the snow, but that appeared to be the only option. Thomas soon thought of a plan. "Excuse me," said Thomas. The workmen had turned away, but then they turned back. "What is it?" said the workman. "Well, as you may know," said Thomas, "today is Groundhog Day." What about it?" said the workman. "Well, Groundhog Day is Gordon's favorite holiday." Gordon was very shocked, but before he could reply, Thomas spoke up. "And, well, it would mean the world to him if you were to, get him out of the snow so that he wouldn't have to stay here during the night." The workman thought long and hard. "It'll be a challenge, but I suppose we can do it. Rocky, are you up for the challenge?" "Of course I am," said Rocky. "Excellent," said the workman. "Let's get started." And with that, the workmen picked up their shovels again. Gordon didn't have to say anything this time. His smile was so big that even Thomas could see it. Rocky and the workmen worked hard all afternoon and into the evening. Just as the sun went behind Gordon's hill, most of the snow had been removed so that Gordon could be put back down onto the tracks. "Hooray!" said the workman. "Now we're going to go home now. We're tired." And with that, the workman walked away. But Gordon didn't care. He was happy to be back on the rails. "All right, Gordon," said Thomas. "Let's take you home." Gordon's wheels had been ruined by the icy conditions, and he would have to go to the works to get a new pair. "All right, let's go." And with that, Thomas began to back up to go onto the other line. But just then, Gordon put on his brakes. Thomas couldn't move. "What's the matter, Gordon?" he said. "Thomas," said Gordon, I want to thank you." "For what?" "For being my friend." Thomas smiled. "It was nothing, Gordon. Really." "No," said Gordon. "It is a big deal. I teased you about everything this morning, and well, I'm so sorry. Can we be friends?" "We never weren't friends," said Thomas. Gordon was happy. "Thank you, Thomas, for believing in me." "Well, that's all right." And with that, the two friends backed up, buffer to buffer, back to the shed to see their friends.